How Much of These Hills is Gold is a Western-ish historical fiction novel published in 2020, written by Zhang. I hope I'm saying that right. I forgot to look that up before I came out here. So, Western, taking place presumably in California, although it's never explicitly noted that that is the case. And mainly it follows the lives of a family of Chinese Americans who went to California for the gold rush, to try and strike it rich by getting some gold. And this book was deeply affecting. Definitely one of my favorite reads of the year so far, if not ever. It kind of creeped up on me as I was reading it, and by the end I was just absolutely blown away. So the story itself, it's mainly focused on the children of this family of Chinese American immigrants, and their parents have just died. Well, their mother died earlier, and then their father has just died, and these two siblings need to figure out what to do, basically how to survive in this land, and they need to bury their father in a way that is appropriate, that feels right for them. And I should mention that these are young kids. I think the older one is around 10 to 12 maybe, and the younger one is a few years younger than that. So these are little kids dealing with this, and yeah, they need to sort of process the grief of losing their father, and they need to figure out what sort of home they can have. For reasons I won't get into because of spoilers, they are driven out of the town that they were living in. And so as two young Chinese American kids, they need to figure out what sort of they need to figure out where they can go. And this is presumably taking place in the mid 1800s, so sort of peak gold rush, maybe a little bit after that. And the setting is California, near the ocean, but not quite there, in the more deserty areas, or hilly areas, sort of in central and southern California. What I really like, since I'm talking about the setting, what I really like about the setting itself is that it's really ambiguous where this takes place. This could take place on a different planet. It's even ambiguous what time it takes place. There are 4 parts of the book, and each part is labeled with a year, but the first 2 digits of the year are X'd out. And I really like what this did, because while it was clearly heavily inspired by the American West and the gold rush in California, it pulls you back from that a little bit and makes you think about how universal the themes that are being explored really are, and how timeless they are, so that you can't just wave away the events in the novel and the the ugliness of what happens to these kids. You can't just wave it away as like, well, that's what it was like in the mid 1800s. It sucks, but things are better now. By sort of not giving you a definitive time and place, it really makes you take a step back and think of maybe how these themes are relevant in any time and any place. So I really liked what that did, and the setting itself. Presumably the American West, on the frontier. So the first or second wave of settlement of some of these places. It's really, really well executed, brought to life very well. And the sort of beauty, sorry, just making sure my dog's not getting in the water. The beauty and the danger of the West are both put at the forefront. I already kind of alluded to them, but I think the themes that this book tackles are there are many of them, and they are complex and so wonderfully explored in this book. Themes of family, sibling dynamics, gender identity, sexual identity, and there's abuse and racism and a sense of place and longing for home. All sorts of things are going on in this book, and I really don't want to get into too much detail about a lot of it, because I think you really need to just immerse yourself in it, read it yourself, and kind of let yourself take away what you think you should from the book, or what you gravitate towards from the book. Wesson. Hey, Wesson. Yeah, you. Don't go too far. Come on. Wesson, come. Little stinker. So far away he could barely hear me. But yeah, I will touch on the theme that really stood out to me, really reached me emotionally, was that sense of home and that longing for home, and what makes a home, and what makes a family. And these two kids who have gone through so much awful stuff, just looking for a place to exist, it was really moving, and the way it ends as well, it sort of leaves the questions of the novel sort of open. The things that the book has been that the book has been diving into throughout the entire story are sort of left with at once it's like a very strong statement at the end that sort of goes back and ties a lot of things together, or at least dredges up a lot of the things that were tackled in the novel, but it leaves it open as well, in a really powerful way that makes you as the reader sort of, I don't want to say decide what the book is about, but it makes you as the reader sort of take away what you will from the book in a really beautiful way. I mean, it was so impactful. I was so scared to finish this book, because for one thing, I didn't really want it to end, but another thing, I didn't want the ending to be bad. I was so worried that it was going to be maybe like a really neat ending, like tied things up too neatly in the story and in the theming, or it was going to be, it was going to take a specific stance on some of these themes, and maybe stance isn't a right word, but I was worried about it was going to get too specific at the end with what the book was trying to say, and I was going to disagree with what that statement was going to be, but fortunately that didn't happen. It leaves it open for a bit of interpretation, and in that way, I think it's similar to a book I read last year, which was Dune Messiah, which leaves a lot open for plot-wise, but it wraps up a lot of things thematically in that book and in the first book, Dune, in a really beautiful way. I really liked the ending of Dune Messiah, but yeah, How Much of These Hills Is Gold was just absolutely superb in its execution of theme and subject of what the book is trying to say and what the book is trying to accomplish. Another thing I want to touch on is the writing. It is almost poetic at times. There, the way it's written for most of the book is it's as if the narrator of the story is telling you something that you feel like you shouldn't know. Like, it's like they're more talking to themselves and talking through things for themselves than telling somebody else a story. It's very personal, very intimate. They leave things out. Like grammatically, things are left out in a lot of sentences, which sort of cuts things short, makes it sort of bleak. Not quite as far as like The Road by Cormac McCarthy, which is incredibly bare bones and bleak, but it's trending a little bit in that direction. And that gives it a sort of far off character, a sort of far off quality, as if the person who is narrating this is sort of staring 1,000 miles into the distance and just recalling things things that are maybe painful, things that they are still trying to make sense of themselves. And at the same time, you really feel the emotional weight, but also that you feel a greater meaning underneath the words than you would if it just spelled out absolutely everything, and things like descriptions had tons of detail, or thought processes, were sort of very gone into with a lot of detail. So yeah, there's a lot of sort of reading between the lines, I guess you could say, in that respect. But overall, the writing was great. I liked the structure of the book as well. Each chapter has a one-word title, and titles repeat. They kind of, those repeated titles tie those chapters together thematically a lot of times. Hold on. Oh, there he is. Wesson, what are you doing? Ugh. Had a heart attack. I thought he was in the water. But yeah, so the chapter titles, not only do they directly tie into something that physically happens in that chapter, but chapters with titles that are the same throughout the book, to me, felt like they tied together in a thematic way that related to that word as well, which I thought was really cool. They're words like water, mud, blood, wind, relating a lot of times to the land. So I thought that was really nice. I thought that was beautiful. There's only good things to say about this book. I would strongly recommend it. It's kind of a Western, but it's a lot more just, modern literary fiction, focusing heavily on these two characters, these two children, rather than the setting or, action or anything like that. Although there are a lot of things that happen in the novel. And the themes of, how do two children of immigrants fit in a place that does not welcome them, but how do they find a home when they really don't have a home to go back to? It's not like they can just sail across the ocean back to China, which for them is not a place that they're going back to because they've never been there. The place that feels most like home to them is the land that they grew up in, despite how unwelcoming its inhabitants are and how desolate and unforgiving the land itself is. So, if that sounds like a good read to you, be warned, it's very heavy, very emotional, not a lot of levity in or uplifting moments in this book, so read at your own risk. But if that sounds good to you, I would strongly recommend this book. And How Much of These Hills is Gold, see Pam Zhang. If you liked this review, hit the like button. If you didn't like it, hit the dislike button. If you've read this book, let me know what you thought in the comments. Subscribe for more, and I will see you next time.